These were the women who held the most glamorous factory job in America, and it killed them. They were called the Radium Girls. In the 1920s, they earned more money than their own fathers, ranked in the top 5% of female wage earners, and literally glowed when they walked home at night. This is the story of a dream job that became a death sentence, and how the women it destroyed changed American labor law forever. Go back to 1917. The United States has just entered World War I, and the military needs something very specific: watch dials and instrument panels that glow in the dark. A company called the Radium Luminous Material Corporation opens a studio in Newark, New Jersey, and starts hiring young women to paint tiny numbers onto watch faces using a special luminous paint. The brand name was Undark, a product that would be advertised as safe, sold to the military, and worn on the wrists of soldiers. The key ingredient was radium. To understand how coveted this job was, you have to understand what women's work actually looked like in the 1920s. The average woman working in a factory earned about $17 a week. Nurses, who worked one of the most demanding professions available to women, earned roughly $32,000 a year in today's money. But a dial painter pulled in $20 a week, which works out to about $370 in today's currency. The fastest painters could earn double that, nearly $40,000 a year for the top earners. Some of these women were teenagers. Some of them were out earning every man in their household. One of those women was Mabel Williams. She survived to 104, and she said later that she never tipped her brush with her lips because she just didn't think that was a good idea. She was the exception. The work itself seemed almost too good to be true. It was clean, it was indoors, and it counted as skilled labor. You sat at a table, mixed your own paint in a small crucible, and used a fine camel hair brush to apply the glowing substance to watch dials. $0.50 per dial, 250 dials per shift. The math was beautiful, the work was easy, and the substance you were handling was radium, the most expensive material on the planet. A single gram was worth $100,000 in 1921, which is $1.3 million today, more valuable than gold and diamonds combined. So what was the catch? The brushes. Those fine camel hair brushes lost their point after just a few strokes, and the supervisors had a solution. They told the women to shape the tip of the brush with their lips. Lip, dip, paint. Lip, dip, paint. Over and over again, hundreds of times per shift. Every single time they did it, they swallowed a tiny amount of radium. And here's what turns this story from tragic to criminal. The company knew. In those same facilities, the chemists and researchers who handled radium wore lead aprons. They used lead screens. They picked up the material with tongs. They understood exactly what radium could do to the human body. The inventor of the paint himself, Dr. Sabin Arnold von Sochocki, once hacked off his own finger when it became contaminated with radium. He had personally heard Pierre Curie say that he wouldn't trust himself in a room with a kilogram of pure radium because it would burn the skin off his body and probably kill him. But the women painting the dials? No gloves, no masks, no warnings. Because nobody told them anything, the Radium Girls treated the luminous paint like a novelty. They painted their nails with it. They brushed it onto their teeth so their smiles would glow on dates. They dusted it across their faces and hair. Walking home from work, they shimmered in the dark. And people in town started calling them the Ghost Girls. Then the dyeing started. In 1923, a dial painter named Amelia Maggia became the first known victim. Before she died, her jaw literally fell away from her skull, a condition doctors would eventually call radium necrosis, or radium jaw, caused by the radioactive material destroying bone tissue from the inside out. By 1924, 50 women who had worked at the Orange, New Jersey plant were seriously ill, and a dozen were already dead. Their bones were disintegrating from the inside out. Radium mimics calcium in the body, so when you ingest it, it goes straight to your bones and stays there, irradiating you from within for the rest of your life. It was a Newark pathologist named Harrison Martland who finally proved what was happening. Martland developed methods to detect radioactive decay in the women's bodies, including testing their exhaled breath for radon gas. His findings were groundbreaking and deeply inconvenient for the company because they constituted medical proof that radium ingestion was causing the deaths. That proof would become the foundation of the legal cases to come. The company's response? United States Radium Corporation, as they were now called, told everyone the women had syphilis. They pressured doctors to change causes of death on medical records to sexually transmitted infections. They falsified a report from Harvard. They took out full-page newspaper ads in Ottawa, Illinois, where a second factory had opened, one that supplied watch dials to major clients including Westclox Corporation, declaring that radium was completely safe. The National Consumers League, a progressive-era labor reform organization, was among the first outside groups to investigate the workers' claims and push the story into public view. They understood what the company was doing, and they helped amplify what the women themselves were too sick and too legally outgunned to say alone. Grace Fryer spent 2 years just trying to find a lawyer willing to take her case. 2 years. Finally, in 1927, a young Newark attorney named Raymond Berry agreed to represent her. He filed suit on behalf of 5 women: Grace Fryer, Edna Hussman, Catherine Schaub, Quinta MacDonald, and Albina Larice. MacDonald and Larice were sisters of Amelia Maggia, the first woman to die. By their first court appearance in January 1928, all 5 women were so physically destroyed they couldn't raise their arms to take the oath. Grace Fryer had lost every single one of her teeth and needed a back brace just to sit upright in her chair. The journalist Walter Lippmann called the trial delays one of the most damnable travesties of justice that has ever come to our attention. A settlement came in June 1928. Each woman received $10,000, about $188,000 in today's money, plus a $600 annual annuity and coverage of all medical expenses. It wasn't justice, but they were dying and they knew it. They didn't have time to wait for justice. In Ottawa, Illinois, a dial painter named Catherine Donahue picked up the torch. At a hearing in February 1938, she presented a box to the court containing pieces of her own jawbone. When the judge asked her doctor about her chances of recovery, Donahue collapsed from her chair. Newspaper reporters wrote that several men picked her up and carried her from the room, and that her 71 pounds was not a heavy burden. She died on July 27, 1938, the day after the company filed yet another appeal. The community turned on the women too. It was the Great Depression. Radium Dial was one of the few employers in town, and people shunned the very women who were fighting for their lives. But the courts sided with the workers. In October 1939, the United States Supreme Court declined to hear the company's final appeal, and the ruling stood. It mattered enormously. In 1936, Illinois had already passed the Illinois Occupational Diseases Act, a direct legislative response to the dial painters' cases, which established that workers could seek compensation for diseases caused by their working conditions. That precedent rippled forward. In 1949, Congress passed a bill guaranteeing compensation for occupational diseases and extending the statute of limitations. And in 1971, the fight these women started led directly to the creation of OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, established under the William Steiger Occupational Safety and Health Act. Von Sachocki, the man who invented the paint, died in November 1928. He was the 16th known victim of his own creation. The last radium paint factory didn't close until 1978. The former dial painting studio in Orange, New Jersey, became a Superfund cleanup site, and the EPA didn't finish the work there until 2006. When researchers visited the graves of the dial painters in 1987, Geiger counters still crackled with radiation. 60 years later, the poison was still there. The very last Radium girl, May Keene, died in 2014 at the age of 107. She had survived because her bosses weren't satisfied with her work and fired her early. And then there was Mabel Williams, who lived to 104, the woman who simply never thought it was a good idea to put the brush in her mouth. 2 survivors, saved by luck and instinct, in a room full of women who had no reason to believe they needed either. These women walked into what they believed was the best job a woman could get in America. Clean work, good money, a substance the whole country believed was miraculous. They painted undark onto the dials that soldiers wore into battle. They paid for that belief with their bones, their jaws, their lives. But what they left behind, the legal precedents, the safety standards, a company cannot knowingly poison its workers and escape accountability. That legacy is still protecting people right now, today, in workplaces all across this country. The glowing ghosts of the Radium Girls haunt us still. And they should.